NFL free agency was crazy, right? I mean, not as
Yep.
crazy as in years past, but as good as the March Madness tournament has been this year, I often had said the NFL free agency has felt like the real March Madness. I mean, it's absolutely insane. But there is still one domino to fall out there before the draft. And so, you're a fan of the Cleveland Browns, obviously. We're all watching to see what they do at number two, but
Right.
the Pittsburgh Steelers I don't know how people have not connected this dots yet. Pat McAfee has an event on Wednesday at the PPG Paints Arena, and
Yeah.
one Mr. Rogers neighborhood, I can guarantee you is going to be there and announce that he's going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. And, I was so high on the Jets last year. I thought Aaron Rodgers coming off the torn Achilles. I thought they focused on the offensive line. They drafted the kid out of Penn State. They brought in Morgan Moses. They had Garrett Wilson come in. Robert Sala was going to coach the defense. And I was like, okay, if there's one year the Jets are going to be good, it's this year.
Yep.
And then everything fell apart. And so I'm looking at Pittsburgh, and they're all like, "Oh, we're 9-8. We've never had a losing record." You couldn't get in the end zone the last 5 games of the year. Like Rodgers is not going to fix what is theoretically wrong with Pittsburgh, which to me is they can't get the offensive line right.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. The thing about it is, and the writing's on the wall with Aaron Rodgers, right? Like he is, love or hate him, he is a very mysterious person in the way he does things, right? Like he's very calculated. He likes people waiting on him. I mean, if you remember, I think it was a couple weeks ago, we saw the photo of him on the beach, looking longingly into the water, wondering what his next move is going to be. And it's that sort of stuff that he absolutely eats up. He loves. And if you're right about this event, this Pat McAfee event that he's going to be at and announce that he's going to be a Steeler, that just adds on more to his mythology, his legacy. He loves when people are waiting on him. The thing about it is, like you said, what is Rodgers really going to do that Russell Wilson couldn't do last year? And my answer to that question is really not much. Now, with all that being said, Rodgers still had a decent year. Like it wasn't horrible, with all things considered. It was pretty much the same exact year he had in his last year in
Green Bay.
excuse me, with Green Bay. Thank you. Um, eh, but not a great year, right? Like still 11 interceptions. That last year in Green Bay, he had 12. It's like his touchdown to interception ratio was not great compared to literally every other year he's been in the league. Like in 2021, he had something like 37 touchdowns and like five interceptions. So it's like it doesn't really, what is he really going to be able to do to boost that offense? And like you said, their offensive line not really great. They lost Najee. What's the running game going to look like? Like they don't have a lot of offensive pieces that you can really rely on. Now, obviously, they've got George Pickens and Brandon. Remind me who else they signed on the other side there. They got another receiver.
DK Metcalf.
Uh, that's right, DK Metcalf. And so with that being said, you've got kind of two fiery wide receivers, right? And Aaron Rodgers loves his big wide receivers. He loves his spark plug wide receivers. But how is that going to work when one or two of them or both of them aren't getting the ball as much? How is that going to work in the locker room? How are they going to view Aaron Rodgers? I mean, Pickens, we saw, had a pretty not so nice, not he didn't have the best opinion you could say of Russell towards the end of the season there. And I could see the same exact thing happening towards the end of the season with Aaron Rodgers if they're sort of going through that slide. Now, they've got Mike Tomlin still. They still have a decent coaching staff, all things considered. But so they're probably still going to be, you know, an above 500 or just below 500 team this year.
Oh,
Um,
they'll be 500. They'll be nine and
yeah,
eight.
absolutely. They'll be 9-8. They'll be 9-8. They'll be competing in the AFC North for sure. And, with how dreary things are looking for teams like the Bengals or teams like the Browns, it's sort of pretty much just going to be the biggest competition is going to be the Ravens there. So it's like, what can Rodgers really do to separate himself from Wilson last year? And to me, not that much. And I've got a really good friend who's a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. He doesn't want anything to do with Rodgers, but seems like that's going to be their option. Now, Rodgers could certainly be their option, but I have a feeling they could also draft a quarterback either in the first round or the first couple of rounds as well. If that happens, what could that look like? Who could that be? If Rodgers isn't performing well by week 9 or 10, are they going to make a change? Like
There's
Pittsburgh's not
no way Tomlin would make a
right.
change. I think
Well, I was just
if
going to say,
if
yeah,
Rodgers is there, Rodgers is going to start all 17 games regardless. I do want to ask you this because you mentioned
yep,
Cincinnati. So they paid Chase, they paid Higgins. And as a fan of the Super Bowl 59 champion Philadelphia Eagles, who has two elite receivers, I don't really have a problem with it. I've been here all offseason basically saying, hey, my team pays Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, name them.
yep,
The salary cap, it isn't existent, but there is no excuse for a team being cheap. You got to find a way to solve your issues. And the way
right,
Philadelphia's done it is by drafting great young players on the defense side of the ball. That's what Cincinnati has to do now. Their defense was atrocious last year. I don't think it could get worse. Like, I just think the way I look at it is okay, you paid Chase, you paid Higgins. They may pay Trey Anderson. Who knows what's going to go on with that situation? But
yep,
they're going to draft defense. And I don't know. I look at the Bengals and I look at the Ravens, and I'm sorry. As long as they have Joe Burrow and Chase and Higgins on that team and healthy, like to me, they're a threat in that division. I can't discount Cincinnati because when they make the playoffs, if Burrow's healthy, they're in the AFC championship game.
yeah, yeah. That's the thing about it too. But like you said, their defense is struggling, and what the heck is going to happen with Trey Hendrickson? Like he just came out this week and said that he was disappointed with how the Bengals handled things and what they said about his contract situation. And I don't blame him, quite frankly. I mean, you look at Miles Garrett, who also requested a trade, sort of a similar
which
situation
which
there.
we will get into here in a minute.
Absolutely, absolutely. He requested that trade, sort of a similar situation with Hendrickson, obviously. And you look at what the Browns gave Miles Garrett, you look at what Hendrickson probably wants, and he probably wants a little bit more or about the same contract as Miles Garrett got. And if the Bengals aren't willing to pay that, I mean, look, the Bengals don't even know where they're going to be playing after next season. I mean, they came
Yeah.
out this week as well and said, we could be anywhere. So when you've got that sort of stuff hanging over your head, and we'll talk maybe a little bit about the Browns and what they have hanging over their heads as well. When you've got that hanging over your head heading into a season, regardless on if you come to a deal with Hendrickson or if you draft a really great defensive player in the draft, you've got these distractions hanging over your head. And in the NFL,
No,
probably more than
that's a great point. I didn't
yep,
think about that. In
yep.
the NFL, noise and distractions lose you games. Look at San
It absolutely does.
Look at
Absolutely
San
more than any
Francisco
other
last
sport.
year. Look at
Yep,
San Francisco last year. All offseason, Ayuk and Deebo Samuel were making noise. Maybe it was injuries, maybe not, but they didn't look like the same team from week one last year.
nope,
Cincinnati, same thing. They got hot at the end of last year, but at the beginning of the year, what was it? Noise and distractions. Like them or not, here in Cleveland, what was Deshaun Watson? A noise and a distraction.
yep,
All
yep,
three of those teams did not make them. By the way, Dallas, right? Dak Prescott, the contract all off season. Now Dak
yep.
got hurt obviously at the end of the year, but they weren't even close to being the team that they were a couple of years ago.
No,
So again, noise and distraction.
yep,
So now,
exactly.
so let's go into the draft because I think this is the weirdest mock draft season I have ever remembered covering on the air
Yes,
because it is
yes,
a draft where it's like there's consensus great players, but the position groups, and again, there's depth at defensive line, there's depth at offensive line, there's depth at running back, there's depth at tight end. But it's like all of these guys, you rank them, and outside of a few, it's like, well, this guy could go in the top 10, or he could go in like the bottom of the first round. It,
yeah.
it's it's a very weird like non-consensus. It's more a fit draft, like where does a certain player fit a certain team? But let's just start at the top. I think it is without a doubt consensus that the Tennessee Titans will not trade that first pick. They are taking Cam Ward. was that I said, I do my Brandon's best bets every week of the NFL season. Every week Will Levis started last year, I bet against the Titans. I mean, he literally threw away 4 or 5 games for the team last year, and like I don't know what the knock on Brian Callahan is, just that he was in Cincinnati, he didn't call plays, so people don't think he can coach. But I'm like, this guy's got nothing to work with. Like, you got to give him some time here with Cam Ward. And listen, they're in a weak division. Could they pull a Houston or a Washington and be the surprise team next year? Like, I think they could.
Yep, yep, absolutely. The thing about Cam Ward, man, I like Cam Ward. Okay, so when it comes to my quarterback rankings, I've got Cam Ward at the top, obviously, and I've got Sheduer at a not a distant second, but and I'll explain why I've got Sheduer maybe on a little bit lower on my list when it comes to him between Cam Ward. But Cam Ward has a big boom possibility. He could really, really be good. Like you said, they could have a season like Washington did last year with Jaden Daniels, but he also has a big bust potential, in my opinion. To me, it's attitude is everything when it comes to quarterbacks. We talked about this last time on the show. Deshaun Watson, horrible attitude, horrible quarterback. We see it. I mean, even Aaron Rodgers the
Eh,
last couple of
Yeah.
seasons, his
Well, and,
attitude,
and and even
horrible.
a guy like Trevor Lawrence, right? Remember, right before the draft, and we kind of all glossed over. We were like, I don't think it's going to be a big deal. But there was that story about he doesn't really love football. And
Yep.
by the way, that was the one thing they said about Luck too.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, the same thing could be said about Cam Ward. I watch a lot of interviews. I watch a lot of interaction. I look at that stuff as very important, almost as not obviously as important as game film, but almost as important. I'll explain why. Because and I'll give you a great example. There's Shador and Cam spent a lot of time together this last offseason, heading up to the combine, heading up obviously to the draft. And a lot of those videos you see a big difference in personality between Ward and Shador. Obviously, both of them are very confident. Both of them are very secure in their ability to do well at the next level. However, there's a difference between being confident and cocky for no reason. Now, Cam Ward obviously has a good reason to be cocky. However, you have to measure that cockiness in the NFL. And Cam Ward made a comment that still sticks in the back of my head when he was with Shador in one of these videos, and you can blow it off as uh, joking around or whatever you want to say. But he made a comment that's striking to me. He said, whatever team I go to, I'm going to get 4 or 5 Super Bowls in the first 10 years and then retire.
Oh, I didn't hear
Um,
that.
yeah,
Yeah, I don't want
comments
that.
like that
I don't want that.
really turned me off, to be quite frank with you, because it's hard to win in the NFL. It's hard to win in all professional sports, but the NFL is very hard. You've got a very
Football
select
is
number of
hard, right?
games.
It's
It's
physical.
hard.
It's football's like the only
Yep.
sport nowadays that practice. I mean, basketball they barely practice
Yeah,
nowadays.
right,
You
exactly.
Football
I
is
mean,
Wednesday, Thursday install, Friday. Right? I mean, it is a
yep.
Tuesday through. They say you win the game on Sunday, Tuesday through Saturday.
Yes, absolutely. You have to be so very dedicated to football, almost more so than any other sport. Like I said, because of the lack of games, because of all the practice that you do, and you have to bring that same intensity that you bring on Monday, that you do on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday into Sunday. Um, so it's even if you're not practicing, you have to have that mentality. So if you're somebody like Cam Ward, who is to me a very laissez-faire type of person, you see it even in the way he plays. He's very nonchalant in the way he throws the ball, in the way he runs around. He'll literally walk to the end zone in the middle of or walk to the sideline in the middle of a play, at the end of the play,
Yeah.
and it's very nonchalant. Now that is fun sometimes. That can look cool sometimes, whatever you want to say. But it's that sort of stuff that if I'm a scout, if I'm looking, I'm raising a red flag over stuff like that because I want intensity. I want somebody running through the
Yes.
sideline. I want somebody sliding. I want somebody trucking somebody. Now, quarterbacks, maybe not so much. You want to watch your shoulders, obviously, but I want to see that intensity. To me, Cam Ward does not have that intensity. To me, Cam Ward is the type of person that he thinks he's automatically going to go into a program in the NFL and make it 10 times better. And he may have that mentality that I don't have to work so hard Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I don't have to work so hard during practice. I can just F around, throw the ball, do my thing. And then when it comes to game time on Sunday, then I'll have that intensity. Brandon, you think Tom Brady was walking into
No.
practice on
No.
Wednesday being laissez-faire, non-intense? No, he was effing people around, effing people off, telling them off, telling them what to do, like it was a game. And then he brought that intensity into the game.
Yep.
I want to see that from my quarterback. I want to see that from my first round pick quarterback, my first pick overall quarterback. And quite frankly, maybe the last quarterback we saw with that first pick that had that mentality was Baker Mayfield, or if you want to say an Andrew Luck type of guy, like those guys have that intensity. They have that I've got something to prove type of feeling.
Maybe
Now,
golf a little
golf
bit.
would be a great example too. Absolutely, absolutely. Um, and then when you're looking, you're going, man, I don't see that same sort of intensity with Cam Ward. I don't see that now. Could he be very good? Could he use that approach in practice and still be very good? Sure, of course. But in my experience and your experience, we haven't really seen that, especially from a first pick overall quarterback, to be successful, right?
Okay.
So that's important to keep in mind.
Let me ask you this. So you talked about Miles Garrett. When he
Mhm.
came out to request the trade, listen, the Browns are a circus. I if I was Andrew Berry and I said it, I would have traded Miles Garrett. I would have got two first round picks. I would have got a player. I would have moved on. I know they could still take Abdul Carter number two, and I get it, right? You need two great edge rushers in this league now. The quarterbacks are getting good. It's all about offensive and defensive line play. We all know that. My
Mhm.
problem is you're paying a non-quarterback $40 million a year, and really, what instant impact has he had on this team the last decade? They have not won a playoff game. So
Right,
I I'm kind of torn because I look at it and I go, this roster needs a lot of help. Abdul Carter and Miles Garrett would be a phenomenal duo. There's no doubt about it. But without a quarterback, it's not going to win you games. And I'm also like, this roster for Cleveland needs so much help. I've run out the possibility of, hey, if Las Vegas wants to go get Shedeur Sanders, you can move back, get an offensive tackle. You can still get an edge rusher later in the draft, where edge rushers are a premium in this draft. And you can build the roster and you can move forward and try to find your quarterback a year or two down the road. You get extra picks from moving back and give you more
right.
ammo to go get a quarterback. Like, I don't know why that possibility is not being thrown out more. And right now, it does feel like, from all the consensus I've gotten, Abdul Carter is the lock at number two, and I'm torn on if it's the right move or not.
Yep, absolutely. I'm sort of sick of, well, you said it earlier in the show, but this mock draft season has been absolutely insane. There's a reason I haven't even attempted making a mock draft this year because to me, it's a futile. It's futile. I mean, whatever I'm going to do is going to be completely different. In my opinion, we'll stick with Miles Garrett for a second here. Yes, we should have traded him. I mean, when it comes to a guy like that, especially after that huge media tour he went on pre combine and
So,
pre
so,
Super Bowl.
so here's the other thing. You just brought it up. Nobody in this city has talked about it, and I don't understand why. Not only did he take shots at the organization, he was taking shots at Stefanski. He was
Yeah,
he was
absolutely.
he was saying the offense was not prepared, which is a direct shot at the head coach and the offensive coordinator, on Ken Dorsey. And if I'm a player like a Joe Patonio or a Wyatt Teller or a Jerry Judy, like even on the defense side of the ball, your Denzel Wards and crew, are they not looking at him sideways when he comes back in the building?
Well, the thing about it is, Brandon, you could say all you want. You can say everything you want about a team. If you're really great, it doesn't really matter. People will look at you how they looked at you, how they always looked at you. Now, what the problem with Miles Garrett is his leadership stuff, right? You don't go around and say that sort of stuff. There was some stuff that came out as well that he's late to team meetings, and when they signed him, they challenged him to be a real leader on the team, right? And my question, Brandon, is, and I'm sure you feel the same way about this. What happens at the end of this year when the Browns are 4-13 or whatever the heck they end up being? If things don't work out well, is Miles going to go ahead and request another trade? He's already got the money. He's already got the money. Or is he going to try to request another trade, try to hold out, try to do this, try to do that? Like that sort of stuff worries me from a player who made the comments that he did. Now, if he just requested a trade, didn't go on this big media tour, didn't basically shit on the head coach and say these horrible things about different aspects of the organization. Horrible, but maybe true still. At the same time, you're saying things that are a little much when you're supposed to be the best player, the leader of the team. Um, I'm questioning whether or not he'll be able to be that leader. I'm questioning whether or not he'll be able to go in and be a leader that he needs to be for this team. He needs to be like even voluntary mini camps. I want to see him there this year. He's not going to be, but I want to see him there. I want to see him with the team. I want to see him around the team, even if he's not participating. Show up on the sideline, do something. I mean, show the team that you're different now. Because there will be, even though, like going back on my comment earlier where I said, no matter how great you are, there's going to be people that think you the same. There are still going to be some players that think of you in a bad light because of what you said and because they're so dedicated to the team. And there's going to be coaches that think of you in a bad light too. And you're going to be under a microscopic radar because of your contract. And look, the last person we gave this a lot of money to, this sort of money to, was a guy who had X amount of sexual assault allegations and ended up not being a good leader, ended up being honestly the worst trade in NFL history, and Deshaun Watson. But so when it comes to Miles, look, I think we should have traded him. Am I glad he's on the team? Is he going to help us win games? Certainly. Will we need him in the playoffs if we make it there in the next couple of years? Certainly. Is he at the top of his game right now? Certainly. But there's some things that are still questionable with him, and we've seen it. We've seen it. Whether it's the talking out against the head coach, requesting the trade, driving his whatever sports car and flipping it 8 times and almost dying, missing games because of that. Like these are things that can not happen anymore. And look, if the Browns don't do well this year and they don't do well next year, and he decides to request a trade again or whatever the case may be, they damn well better trade him at that point, because then at that point we know what he is. Yes, he's a great player, but he's almost more of a headache than we want to deal with. And at that point, in 2 years or a year, if we ended up actually trading him, eh, then he'll still be in his prime. We'll still get a good haul for him. But this year would have been the year we got the most, right? I mean, you look at these teams in the draft order: 4, 5, 6, Patriots, Jaguars, and Raiders. I think the Raiders are going to get a quarterback, but those are teams that if you traded Miles Garrett to, for example, you probably could have gotten their pick. You probably could have gotten another first round pick next year. Then you're picking twice in the top 10, right? And if you wanted to go after an Abdul, if you wanted to go after a Sheduer at that spot, if you wanted to go after a Travis Hunter at that spot, you could, and then you could go ahead and get the other player that you wanted in that top 10. Now they're beholden to one player. They're beholden to basically it's either Sheduer, or a Duel or Travis. I think it's going to be Travis, and we can talk more about the draft
Okay,
as well
that
when we
that
move to
that's
that.
interesting. So let me say this,
Yep.
and it sounds like you're gonna push back on me, and I want to hear it because the thing about Travis Hunter is I view him personally more as a defensive back than a receiver, and I think if he's a receiver, he's probably a slot receiver or a gadget guy or a package guy,
Yep.
and to me, like I don't know how having a lockdown, like I can't think of the last great corner that was drafted so high that completely changed the defense and was the missing piece to a defense. So, like I said this about Travis Hunter. I think he's a very good player, but I think in this draft he will be overdrafted no matter where he goes. Like I think
Sure.
in last year's draft he's probably picked 10, 12, 15, which where I would feel more comfortable drafting him. I just don't think he's worth top value. But tell me where I'm wrong.
See, Brandon, I don't even know that you're necessarily wrong, right? But this draft is so weird. Like, to me, I would like Abdul Carter. I would like Mason Graham. I would like a player like that at
I
two.
think Mason Graham is the most underrated player in this draft. I think he's really good.
I'll tell you this: last year, he's the number one. Like, maybe not the number one pick, but he's a top two pick for sure. Last year, I mean, same thing with Abdul Carter. I like Mason Graham a little bit more than Abdul Carter, but like you said, he's slept on. Look, when it comes to Travis Hunter, and not necessarily where you're wrong, but just thinking from the Browns mentality, right? You're Andrew Berry. Andrew Berry loves his corners. Now, Stefanski came out and said that he views Travis Hunter as more of a wide receiver. He said this at the combine. Travis Hunter wants to play both sides. And look, I know that it's not realistic. The Browns do have two starting corners, but really three starting corners with Emerson, Newsome, and Ward. Um, but when you've got a guy like Travis, you almost, to me, I would be remiss if I were the Browns. I draft him and I only play him at wide receiver, right?
Well, here's the thing, though, too. If you draft Hunter, would you think about maybe moving a Ward or a Newsome?
That is a good question too. Now, Newsome would be the pick to move, right? Now, obviously, you've got the worry with Denzel with his concussions, but to me, Denzel is a I mean, he's a top of the line corner, and it's not necessarily somebody that you just
I think
that
PFF had
need.
him as the best corner in football last year. I know it's
Absolutely,
some points he
absolutely,
was.
yeah, absolutely. So to me, now, obviously, with his concussions, the problem is, can he stay on the field? I think he can. He refuses to wear a guardian cap. I get it.
Well,
But
statistically, those Guardian caps have not saved anybody from like. I'm not going to
sure,
knock anybody. I think
no,
even
sure,
Tua said like, "Hey, they told me I should wear one for extra safety," but there's no science behind it.
sure, absolutely. And so with Denzel, I would like to keep Denzel if we could. Now Newsome, that's a player that we could move off of. Even Emerson, that's a player we could move off of. Emerson is very interesting though because he was not great last year, but he was great the year
Well,
before.
he's
He
a
was
very
great.
hands-on corner is the thing. He
Yes,
he gets a lot of penalties.
yes,
And I love Jim Schwartz, obviously, from his time in Philly. I think he's a very good defensive coordinator.
yeah,
But I've said this too. I think having good corners is a luxury. Philly had obviously a great secondary last year. Quinyon Mitchell was amazing. Cooper DeJean was amazing. That's what really transformed the defense. But
yep,
historically, I mean, those New England teams outside of Gilmore, they never really had great corners.
yep,
Seattle is like I mean, even Kansas City, right? The years they won the Super Bowl, their defense wasn't great. Seattle and Philly were the two rare exceptions where it's like, okay, their rosters are so good from top to bottom, it doesn't matter. Like, I just feel like corner is not the premium position on defense to get you over the hump.
right. No, you're right. Absolutely. It's usually those edge guys. And I agree, but when it comes to Travis, he's so talented on both sides of the ball. Now, I could see the Browns, I could realistically see them doing a thing where, hey, Travis gets, a lot of the offensive snaps, and then he'll come in for corner in certain
On
situations.
like a
And
third down passing
right, right.
situations.
And I trust Jim Schwartz to decide where he wants to place him when it comes to that.
Well,
Look, Jim Schwartz wants Travis Hunter to play corner too. Like
and
you're not going to
probably
draft him.
the easiest transition if you're going to do that is probably go like, hey, on third down and whatever dime package, you're in man-to-man coverage, guard
Yep,
your man. Like
yep,
there's
exactly.
no scheme to that, right? Follow the guy around. I mean, football is so funny, right? It is that
Yeah,
simple of a game, even though it is
yeah,
so nuanced.
yeah, absolutely. And it's so funny you bring that up, but it's interesting when it comes to he's such a unicorn, right? And to me, uh, even just at wide receiver alone, like he's worth that number two pick to me. And I know it may be in former drafts, like last year, he may have fallen out of the top 10. But to me, I think he's got the talent enough. I think he's proved it enough at the college level. Um, I love those perky, jerky wide receivers, Justin Jefferson types, those guys that can catch the ball. It's literally 5 yards from the line of scrimmage and
Yeah.
then make it a 30-yard play, just because of their footwork and the way that they can move around guys. Now, to me, the question is, who the hell is going to be throwing the ball, right? I mean, that's a
And
huge thing.
but and I've
Like,
been on this, by the way, because it sounds like it's going to be Kirk Cousins. I think it's a mistake. I don't care what he looked like, a couple years ago in Stefanski's system. I watched him last year. He got worse the year goes on.
yeah,
Generally, when
absolutely.
people are coming off Achilles, they get better as the year goes on. He could not drive the ball at the end
Yep,
of last year. There is a reason why Atlanta had to move for Michael Penix because they let the division go. They were up.
yeah,
They swept Tampa. They were up 3 games on them in the loss column, which meant they were really up 4 games on them, and they lost the division. Like,
yep,
I'm sorry, Kirk Cousins is not solving your issues. You might as well put Kenny Pickett out there to me if you're going to go that route.
absolutely. The thing about it, so let's talk about Shador for a second. I like Shador. I like Shador. Is he a number two overall pick quarterback? Probably not. Um, to be quite honest with you, I think
It's
here's my
it's
thing
so
about
weird because he started out as projected the number one overall pick, and I'll tell you one thing: at the end of the season, when Dallas refused to fire Mike McCarthy and then obviously ended up letting him go, I was the first one. I know Bruce dreaded the year in Cleveland came out and said, "Oh, the Browns are working on a trade with Dak," and there's
sure.
numerous reports and all that out there, whether it's true or not. I was the first one that said it back in January. I was like, you know
Yep,
what? The Browns should trade for Dak. Number two pick for Dak. Browns get their quarterback. Dion should come to Dallas. Jerry Jones does one last ride, and here they go.
yep,
Obviously, they've gone in different directions. But from that point on, Shador has gone from, okay, he's going to be number one or maybe neck and neck with Cam Ward. There's a debate. All the way to Cam Ward's up here and Shador may be dropping to mid first round, or some people even have him out of the first round.
yeah, which is crazy. And I watched. I don't. Did you watch any of his pro day at all?
No, I did not.
It was people were
Because here's my thing about
oogling.
pro days. I don't watch pro days because I don't get them. There's guys running around in t-shirts and shorts. Like it
Yeah,
doesn't show me anything. I'm a put on the tape guy.
I 100% agree. I 1000% agree. And I'm the same way. However, you can find out a lot through these pro days, just the way they do things. Now, I'll give you an example. Cam Ward, great pro day. I loved Cam Ward's pro day. It looked you can like even though it's just shorts, obviously, and t-shirts, you can tell a lot, in my opinion, about the way a guy can throw the ball, and things like that. Now, Cam Ward, very zippy, very quick, releases it quickly. I'm gonna give you a little demonstration here. Cam Ward, boom, ball out. Here's the difference. Shador, every single throw, double pumping, double pumping, double pumping. Now, you look at the film. Cam Ward, decision maker, boom, ball out. It's
Yeah.
there. Shador, pump, run around, pump, throw. Those sort of things with Shador, I look at that and it worries the hell out of me,
I
especially
got
for
you.
the AFC North. It worries me. Now, obviously, it's a pro day. These guys are D'ing around, having fun. That stuff worries me. That tells me, okay, you're playing against no defenders. You're thrown to a guy that you throw to all the time that's probably going to be the number two overall pick or top five pick in Travis Hunter. Um, be more decisive. Get the ball out quicker. Same thing with endgame. Be more decisive. Get the ball out quicker. To me, and this is where I was going with this whole point, there's not a huge difference between Shador, Jackson Dart, Jalen Milrow.
That's what I was going to ask you. That's the report that I've been hearing. But it sounds like some of these guys may go first round, some of them may go second, late second. Like I like Jalen Milroe to me. There's something about him where I'm like, I think he needs to be in the right situation. But
Yep.
maybe it's his hair, maybe it's the fact he went to Alabama. But I was like, he reminds me. Am I crazy? He reminds me a little bit of Jalen Hurts to me.
You know what, Brandon? I 1000% agree with you there. I 1000, and I'm so happy you brought that up. Look, Milrow is not going to be a guy you draft and start week one. He's just not. He's just not. But I think Jackson Dart's going to go in the first round. I think there's going to be three quarterbacks selected in the first round. Milrow and the Browns are in a good spot here. They've got the 33rd overall pick. They've got that first pick in the second round. To me, if I'm the Browns, if you don't get a quarterback with that two pick in Sheduer, or even if the Titans shock everybody and pick Abdul Carter or Mason Graham, um, I would pick Cam Ward at that point. I think the Browns would too. But let's say Cam Ward goes number one overall. You've got options. You've got the option to do Travis Hunter. You've got the option to maybe even trade back into the first round at the end there if
Yeah,
Shador still isn't
you got
taken.
options to trade back at 2 to 4, maybe five. I don't know, and then maybe six
Yeah.
in Vegas, and then you trade back up. You use whatever extra pick you got from Vegas, trade back up.
Yep. Absolutely. So, but going back to Milrow, he doesn't have great passing stats. I think he had 16 touchdowns last year. I think he had. I got his stats right here. I think he had like 11 interceptions or something. Hold on, let me look.
You talk about toughness. I just like the way that kid plays. I
Oh,
he,
absolutely. You know what's most impressive to him about me, Brandon, and something that I think is such a huge advantage in this NFL that honestly I don't even think is talked about enough running the football as a quarterback.
yep,
Milrow had 20 touchdowns last year running the football.
yeah,
20. 20, that's more than he passed the football. Now, you look at these really good quarterbacks right now who are in the playoffs. Lamar Jackson, that dude, people question whether or not he can pass the ball. Jalen Milrow reminds me a little bit of Lamar too when it
yeah,
comes to that. Coming out of college, people question whether Lamar could throw the ball downfield. People question how accurate he was. People question a ton of things about him. What you couldn't question is his athleticism, his
yeah,
ability to get the hell out of the pocket when he needs to run around, to juke a linebacker out, and then to just go down. And Milrow didn't take a lot of hits either when it came to that too, because he's very shifty. And to me, the difference between him and Shador, I've got Milrow as my third rated quarterback. I'm not as high on Jackson Dart as a lot of other people are. And it's purely because of the athleticism. If the Browns got a Travis Hunter with that second pick, or even Abdul Carter or Mason Graham or whoever, if they traded back and got an offensive lineman, whatever, which I know that's a boring pick. I would love that pick because Jedrick is
I've
just
I've been preaching it for like the last couple. Every guest I've had on here, I've said no one has talked about the possibility of Vegas trading up from 2 to 6 and grabbing Shador, and you going down to 6 and taking the best tackle in the draft because you
meh.
need two. I mean, Conklin's okay, but he's getting up there in age. You need left tackle, a right tackle. You need a complete offensive line rebuild. Let's be honest.
Agreed. And then if you did that, there's a ton of different things you could do in that second and third round, right? Like if you want to grab a running back, I know they just met with Judkins. I don't think he'll be selected until a third or fourth round, but
Yeah, they need to
Henderson they
get a
had
running
meetings with.
back, and this running back class is
Absolutely.
so deep outside of Gentry,
Absolutely.
very deep.
This is
They're gonna
Brandon, let's just
replace
talk about that for a
Chubb
second. I think this is the best running back class we've seen in, I mean, could we say in like the last
a
10, 20?
decade.
Like
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
one of the best of all
And
time.
they're all similar backs too. It's like
Yeah,
you can't go wrong with 5 or 6 of them. It's like they're all going to be productive. I think they're going to fly off the board in like the mid second to third round.
I agree. I agree. I
Um,
agree with you because you've
so
got you've got Genty, you've you've got Judkins, you've got Henderson, you've got oh my
the
God, I
kid
can't
from
think of the guy from
Tennessee
North
who
Carolina,
I like.
kid from Tennessee, kid from North Carolina, Caleb Johnson from Iowa. You've got a ton of people. I cannot for the life of me. Hold on, I'm gonna look this up real quick.
There's too many names.
Oh, Amari and Hampton
Yeah,
from North Carolina. Like
yeah.
these are guys that if the Browns got him, that is a week one starter. That is somebody you can throw in there because what are we going to throw out Jerome Ford? I mean, seriously, are we really going to
Yeah.
do that? Are we going to
I like
sign Kareem
Ford
Hunt
as a
again?
decent third down back, but not as a starting back. I mean,
No, no, no. And Ford is Ford. Don't get me wrong. I like Ford.
he's a
He did
decent back,
well.
especially
No,
for a third round pick.
absolutely. With all that being said, the Browns need somebody to pass the ball. That's name isn't Kenny Pickett or Kirk Cousins or enter Carson Wentz or enter other free, weird free agent quarterback name here. Um,
I think that guy is
so
going to start week one, though, no matter who they bring in from the draft.
absolutely,
By
absolutely,
the way, there is a
absolutely.
possibility out there that they don't draft the quarterback.
Yeah,
I think that that is out there. Okay. Before we move out the NFL, I want to ask you because this came up late last week, so I didn't get a chance to put it on the rundown, but I want to throw some
yeah,
bones at you.
yeah.
Um, this may be one of my most controversial takes, but I don't like the new NFL overtime rule. I think
Yeah, yeah,
that in the regular season, I know you probably saw my comment in our Bike Show Radio group chat the other day, but I think football is a violent, physical sport. And we're asking these guys to play 60 minutes physical head to head contact. There are studies out there and statistics out there. We all know that Thursday night football, the quality's not as good because these guys don't have enough time to recover. Well, when you're asking a guy to play an extra 10 minutes, which for the record, it's likely these games are going to go more into overtime now that both teams get the ball.
yep,
You're, you know, you're asking these guys to play more, which means the next week they're not going to play as well. And oftentimes there's stats out there, they either lose or they don't cover the spread at the very least. And
yep.
so I look at it and I go, to me, I get the postseason. You got to give both teams a chance to get the ball. It's playoffs and all that. But for the regular season, I think it should be sudden death. First team to score.
Yeah, and I mean it kind of reminds me of the Ghost Runner, well not the Ghost Runner, the runner on second in MLB, right? Like to me the regular season in the MLB goes so much quicker now because of that. And you take that
Yep.
away for the playoffs, that's fine. I get it. Um it kind of reminds me of that, right? Like the MLB to me that's a great system. I love that system, right? Because you want to get out of there quicker. You want your player, you want games to end
Yeah,
sooner.
I
A little
hated it when
different.
it started, but then when you
Yeah, oh
watch
yeah.
it and you go, oh yeah, like we can't be here
Yeah.
for 13 innings in May.
No, no, it's a little different for the NFL, obviously. Uh,
But these
like
guys
you
play
said,
so hard and they play so physical. Like we're risking more injury. And by the way, the only reason why they want to ban the touch push because they claim it's for player safety, even though statistically nobody has gotten hurt on it. So to me, this is a player safety issue. It's a complete 180.
absolutely, no, absolutely, it is. And the NFL is so silly when it comes to some of these rule changes or different things that they do, right? Like they'll ban the tush push, but then they'll do this overtime thing,
Like to me, it's a double
or
standard.
like,
And
absolutely,
the kickoff thing, like I get why, and they had the data backed up. Though I never understood how the kickoff was a date. I got the onside kick being dangerous because you're so close together. You
sure,
know, I didn't, but to me, like. I know they're like, oh, if we, push this back to the 35-yard line, there's going to be more kickoff returns. I said, instead of pushing the touchback to the 35, why don't you just move the kicker back?
yeah, right, absolutely. I, the kickoff rule is it's interesting. It's jarring, right? We've watched football for, I mean, I'm
I mean,
26. I've been
I
watching
like
it
the
for 20
play.
years.
When there were kickoffs last year, it was an exciting play.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. But then, like you said, the main point. I love how you said it. When there were kickoffs
Yeah.
last year,
Well, and again, my
when there was a
solution
return,
was instead of you moving, the penalty up for there being a touchback, because I think now every kick's going to look the same, where they're just going to squib it in there, inside the landing zone, and there may not be as many returns because by the time the ball gets there, there's going to be defenders already down there. Is kind of my worry about that. So for me, it's these kickers have such big legs nowadays. Why don't you move the kicker back 5 yards?
yeah, absolutely. I mean that is 1000% something that could be done, or 10 yards, or whatever the heck it may be. But all these rule changes with the NFL, it's almost like I don't know. It's almost like they're They're hitting things that maybe people don't even necessarily care about. I mean, other than the owners, obviously, who bring this stuff up in the first place. But like you said, there's a lot of double priorities of player safety, acting like they care about safety, and then saying, "Well, actually, we're going to let both teams have the chance to get the ball in the regular season." Now, okay, well, like
And they're like,
if you really care about,
it's a fair. I've never understood the fairness issue. They're like, oh, whatever. Josh Allen didn't get a chance to touch the ball or whatever. Well, you know what? It's on the Bills defense to stop Kansas City or whatever example. They're
that's part of football, man.
like,
That's a
we
great
didn't
part
get
of
a chance.
football.
You did get a chance. You didn't stop the other team from scoring. That's
Yeah,
my argument.
absolutely. No, absolutely. I 100% agree. Pair your team better in overtime situations. You know, Kansas City is a great example of this. Of they are so good in those overtime situations or last freaking 50 seconds of a game when they're down three. They are so good at driving the field, and you have to be better as a defense in those situations. I'm sorry, you have to be more prepared. You have to you can't leave Travis Kelsey open in the middle of the field, 30 yards down. Like, you cannot do those things.
The coaching in the NFL, the difference between the elite and good coach in the NFL has never been greater.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right there.
When Sean McDermott is a good coach, in every big game he gets worked. And
Yeah,
that's been my issue on Buffalo. I wanted them to move out McDermott a couple years ago when they still had Dable in house and go with the offensive guy because me and you have talked about this. I like offensive coaches more than defensive
yes,
coaches. I
yep,
I I think they have more sensibility, especially when you have a young quarterback.
mm,
But
absolutely,
I
absolutely, you're
mean,
absolutely right.
nonetheless, I like that clip from the Branchworth podcast. If so, make sure you go down there and hit that subscribe button. While you're down there hitting the subscribe button, make sure to also hit the notification bell so you never miss another upload. And make sure you check out all the other clips from the Branchworth podcast right here on YouTube.